Are you a current or future physician assistant wanting to learn more about finances? Then join me on this journey to become a PA the FI way. Hi, my name is Kat, and I'm a practicing certified physician assistant who will be your host. It took me 5 years after I started practicing medicine as a PA to thoroughly dive into my personal finances after I discovered the concept of financial independence. I want to use what I have learned to help you avoid some of the financial mistakes that I have made while sharing some of the financial wins that I have had along the way. Join me as we discuss financial strategies to guide you to becoming a physician assistant on the way to financial independence. Welcome back, everyone, to the PA the FIA podcast. I'm your host, Kat, and we have a very special guest joining us for today's episode. We have Kayla here, who is also a PA, and I'm really excited to share your story today. Welcome to the show, Kayla.
Thanks, Kat. I feel like I've waited so long for this moment. So excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you, and I'm confident that your story will be very inspirational to the listeners today. So before we dive deep into your story, let's share a little bit more about yourself. Could you introduce yourself to listeners, tell about your career as a PA so far, and a little bit more about yourself?
Of course. So my name is Kayla. I'm a PA. I'm about to come up on my 3-year work anniversary, which is kind of crazy. I've been working in urgent care medicine the whole time. I did do a little 6-month part-time stint in the emergency room. Learned really quick that it was not the specialty for me. I've lived in the Northeast my entire life. So I grew up outside of Philly, moved to Pittsburgh to do undergraduate and PA school. I actually had the great opportunity to do a 5-year program, and I lived there for almost a decade. And then I recently moved back east to South Jersey and have been on an extended summer vacation at the shore. So I've worn a lot of hats over the years, but currently I am a PA. I'm a wealth coach with WealthRx. I'm an investor. I'm a content creator, and I would also like to call myself an athlete if I may do.
That's great. In what ways are you an athlete? Just curious.
Yeah, so taking it back a little bit, this spring I did 75 hard, and it made me really reminded of how much I love being an athlete and being athletic. So what that means to me is that I try to be active every single day, even if it's in a small way. But I also go to the gym. I like to lift. I like to get my butt kicked on the assault bike and on the stationary bike. And I also recently took up training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So in all of those ways, I'm owning the title.
Awesome. And where you live currently, do you do some surfing as well out there?
In the summertime, yes. I have a rule with myself that I will not put on a hood and gloves and boots. But yeah, I was able to do a lot of surfing this summer as well, which was one of the many perks of living here on an island a couple blocks from the beach.
Awesome. Definitely sounds like you're an all-around athlete, to say the least. And let's dive into a little bit more about your financial independence story. Do you recall the first time that you learned about the concept of financial independence and what really drew you to it?
Yeah, so I would say that this is a multi-layer story. I've been asked this question again, and it really doesn't begin when I would initially think the story begins. Growing up, I was always interested in personal finance, even if I couldn't put a name to it. So my parents had 2 rules for life for me. Number 1 was to be kind, and number 2 was to never carry credit card debt. They had their own stories. These are literally the 2 holy truths of the household that I grew up in. So this was embedded in my head before I could even understand truly what it meant. I started working as soon as I possibly could, and I have like memories of getting, like a $200 check for 2 weeks worth of work and putting a huge chunk of that money aside and knowing like, okay, you don't even tell yourself that you're touching this money. You don't even tell yourself that you have this money. It's just getting saved. So that sort of snowballed into during college. I worked as a server, so that became all cash tips. I remember so vividly, I would come home with my cash stored away. And the first thing that I would do is I would sit down at my desk, break out my notebook, count my money, write the amount that I had total, and then I would break it up. And I'd be like, okay, this much is for rent. This much is, I'm not touching it. It doesn't exist to me. This much is, okay, this is like my play money for the week. So that did evolve over time. And then I would say it really came to the forefront. During college, I lost a loved one who was gracious enough to leave me an amount of money, like a pretty small amount now, but it was enough for me to be like, okay, I have no idea what to do with this, and I really don't want to blow it. My dad likes to invest and had talked about it, and I'm like, okay, well, I think that this would be a good idea. I've done this long enough. I've pretended like I never made money in the first place for years. So, Dad, will you take this money and invest it for me? And that was the first time that I let someone else invest money for me. It was also the first time I had invested, period. And it was my first experience of losing money on an investment. So that didn't settle very well with me. And I put it in the back of my mind that when I had more brain time outside of PA school, I was going to do this. I was gonna learn. So a week or two after I took the pants, I did give myself a little mental vacation after, but I made it my goal to just kind of deep dive into personal finance as a whole. And of course, personal finance always leads to learning about financial independence and the FI movement in general. So I spent the next couple of months honestly hyper consuming personal finance content, information. I found your podcast, which is a really fun full circle movement here. Found resources like the Personal Finance Club, like the PA Blueprint, like the White Coat Investor, and went into student mode again, had my little journal, my notebook, and I was like writing down on my notes. And I kind of used PA school as like a comparison tool. So to me, if I can learn the interworkings of the human body, I can understand pharmacology and physiology and pathophysiology and all these complex things. I can learn what a finance bro can learn. Let's be honest, like you're smart enough, you can do this. So once I dove further into that, I think I had a lot of like validation of like, oh yeah, like this isn't as hard as people make it out to be. Number two, we're in a really unique position where we come out of school usually with a lot of student loan debt, but also with a relatively high income. And I think it was just very validating to find resources where I was affirmed that other people shared this interest, this passion, and really just like a general drive for ongoing self-development and self-growth and self-interest. So that's sort of my journey. And I honestly, obviously, also have been traveling down that rabbit hole ever since.
That's great. Definitely a rabbit hole, to say the least. Lots of different resources out there. And I do really love this full circle moment, too, to have you on and be able to share your journey still so early in your career as a PA. So it's absolutely amazing the moves that you have done and the moves that you're going to do. And I can't wait to see what they all are for you in the future. I also love how giving someone else your money to invest in actually led to be a motivator for you to want to learn this for yourself. And the fact that you have been saying that if you can become a PA, you can learn about investing, you can learn how to manage your money. That's absolutely true. And that's what I always encourage PAs and other healthcare providers out there, that you definitely can learn this stuff. And you honestly should learn this stuff too, to at least have an understanding of your options and where your finances are going, and be able to empower yourself to take control of your own life as well.
Exactly. I maybe it's just my stubbornness, but I'm okay making my own mistakes. But I'm never okay when someone else makes mistakes for me, or it's harder for me to swallow. So like the
Yeah.
whole idea of measure twice, cut once is something that I always try to do in multiple aspects of my life. But when someone doesn't measure twice, then they have to cut twice. It's like, see, why didn't I told you so? And also, I think I totally agree with you. It's so important because it's not taught. You have to seek this out for yourself. No one is going to teach you. No one's going to bring it on a silver platter. I was lucky enough to have some nuggets sprinkled in there. And generally, my parents were of sound mind relatively when it came to personal finance. And I know that not all of us has that privilege. So it is definitely something that you have to seek out for yourself.
For sure. And let's talk a little bit more about your student loan debt overall, as well as how you've been working on paying off your student loan debt and any words of wisdom that you have for that.
Yeah, I would say my student loan debt probably isn't what you'd expect, not taking the super aggressive pay everything off at once. So I graduated PA school with $133,000 of student debt. Some of it's private, some of it's public. During that deep rabbit hole, this was when COVID was dropping interest rates like really, really, really low. So as soon as I learned about the concept of refinancing your private loans, I investigated it a little bit and found that, to my surprise, I was able to refinance to a super low interest rate. So I took all of my private loans, refinanced them to a 1.95 interest rate, which is crazy for student loans. Still feels like sometimes I'm like cheating the system, but there was a catch. Not all that glitters is gold. I locked myself into a really short repayment plan with a really high monthly loan obligation. So that has been sort of restrictive for me because I don't even have the flexibility to say, okay, well, I'm just going to pay the minimum this month. I don't need to put any extra this month because I have XYZ coming up. It's like, no, the minimum is what a lot of people would stretch to pay. So hindsight is 2020. You're always going to make mistakes along the way, and that's okay. So my balance right now is $78,000, which means I paid off a total of $56,000 in 3 years. And that is in addition to, within those 3 years, also buying a house and also buying a car that I have now paid off in full as of last month, which was like $40,000 total. Costly mistake. Again, learning lessons. You do what you have to do in high stress moments, and it's okay.
Totally. One of the first things that people think about once they learn about financial independence is all of those regrets that they've had, all those financial mistakes that they've had over the years. And I just want to normalize those mistakes, that everyone has them. There is not one single person out there that has done everything by the rule book and not made any financial mistakes. That just doesn't exist, right? And then I would also challenge a little bit of the thoughts that you have too about having such a low interest rate and a high monthly payment as a mistake. Those honestly sound like two really great things, that your interest rate is really low. And sure, you have a higher payment, but as long as you're making it work, then you're at least getting those loans paid off instead of letting them drag and drag and drag for many years. So it's always the lens of how you look at things too. And with anything, many of these quote unquote mistakes can have a plus side.
Yeah, I completely agree. I know that when I make that final payment on that loan, it's going to feel so good. And I'm going to be very grateful for past Kayla.
For sure. I always like when I can say, thank you, past Kat, for making this decision.
Kat, I was thinking about that this morning. I was literally thinking about this morning. I was thinking like what being an investor means to me. And my favorite thing, I say this out loud in conversation with people. My one friend Hannah will definitely attest to this. I say out loud so often, thank you, past Kayla. Like, I love those moments. Love those moments. I thrive on them.
I do that too. I love that you do that. And I encourage anyone listening out there, if you feel like that's helpful, go ahead and try that and think about, even in the present, what is your present self doing that your future self is going to thank your present self for? So then you can at that moment say, thank you, past self.
Or when you have an option in front of you, like waking up at 6 o'clock to go to the gym, thank you, past Kayla, after you finish that workout.
Yeah, even if it's only a few hours later, right?
Yep.
Love it. Cool.
I always think to myself, it might suck a little bit, but I know that I'm not going to regret it.
That's great. Yeah. Love it. All right, Kayla. And now let's transition a little bit more into your investing journey. In addition to being a PA, you're also a real estate investor. Could you share a little bit more what drew you to the concept of real estate investing, and specifically the type of real estate investing that you do and what you've learned throughout the process.
Yeah, so I am a real estate investor as well. I think during the thick of my FI rabbit hole, what stood out to me and what I recognized was that every single resource always talked about real estate. Everybody talks about it. So that led me down the rabbit hole to find Bigger Pockets. If you don't know, Bigger Pockets, if you're trying to learn even a little bit about real estate investing, that's where you want to go. Online platform, they have a publishing company, they have great resources. The problem is that it's really easy to get super overwhelmed, but it really is the absolute cherry on top for all things real estate investing. So I consumed content, hyper consumed, and decided on the concept of house hacking. So, house hacking is essentially when you buy a property that you will be able to subsidize or reduce some of the monthly costs by renting it to someone. So, for some people, this could look like a single family where you have a roommate. But it also typically goes into the multifamily units, typically only up to about 4. So you could buy a duplex, you could buy a triplex, you could buy a quadplex, and you rent out those other units while you live in one so that you can reduce your monthly expenses. So one day I sat down, I was renting at the time, and I took my monthly rent and I multiplied that by 12. And then I looked at the prices of the duplexes in my area and I figured out what would be actually like a reasonable total down payment, closing costs, inspection fee. What does that total actually look like? And they were right about the same amount. So I said to myself, instead of putting more money towards my student loans at that time, right, making additional payments, I said, if I can just rapidly save up the amount of money that I would spend in 1 year on rent, I can put that down on a property and then I can almost live for free. And I can have basically someone like pay me back that initial upfront investment that I've made. So once something logically makes sense to me and I get enough sort of wind in my sails, I am just off to the races. So it was decided. I probably made that decision in August or July of that year, and I closed on my property in January. My 2-year anniversary is coming up soon, which is super exciting. Yeah, so when I bought the property, I had over $100,000 in student loans. So please, if you feel like your DTI is going to ruin your experience, it's not. I qualified for an FHA loan, 2.5% down, and I literally came to the closing table with less than $13,000. And now I own a piece of property that is actually making me money. Like, it is so much more accessible than you think. And again, if I can be a PA and learn the interworkings of the human body, I can find the right person to call if something breaks in the house. Like I'm able to do that. It's all good. It's not the end of the world. Yeah, so during that process, specifically medium term rentals, which is the type of rentals that I operate, we're sort of having a moment with COVID and the rise of digital nomads and the rise of, or the explode in popularity of travel nursing as well. Medium term rental essentially means that your guest or your tenant will stay for a minimum of 29 nights and 30 days, as opposed to short term rental would be what you would think of as your typical, like, oh, I'm taking a weekend trip and we're staying in Airbnb. And a long term rental would be a 6-month lease, a 1-year lease, where you walk in and nothing is furnished. You bring all your own thing, all your own furniture. So medium term rental, the unit is furnished, it's decorated, it's curated. You pay for the utilities, as in the owner, and the guest essentially has no like material worry while they're there. They have linens, they have bed sheets, they have utilities, they have pots and pans. You provide all those things. So it has the amenities of an Airbnb without the headache of constant turnover and cleanings, etc. So yeah, so it's been going really well. As soon as I found social proof that that strategy could work in my area, I pulled the trigger and it has been working for 2 years, which is great.
That is great. I have some follow-up questions for you on that. With your midterm rental, what types of clients or renters have you been coming across? Have many of them been travel nurses or, like you mentioned, digital nomads, or does it totally depend on the month and the year?
It has been all over the place for me. I was anticipating all travel nurses because that was a lot of the hype at the time. I have had residents, I've had travel x ray tech, I've had two sets of couples who were moving to the area from out of state who were house hunting. I actually have a couple there right now who is in that process. I've had a PA student, which was
Cool.
awesome. Oh, and then I had two employees who were like opening up a new franchise location. So they needed temporary housing in the area that the new business was opening. So it really has been all over the place.
Very cool. And like you said, too, you are very savvy enough to be able to pick up the phone and call for help if you need help, whether it's contractor help or other type of help. Do you have any stories to share about some of these things that on the surface level may have seemed initially to be a crisis for you for this rental property, and share how you were able to make it work and figure it out anyway?
Yeah, I think like the most juicy epic story is the pipe burst. That always, pulls at the heartthrob a little bit. So I essentially walked into my garage just like any other day, and it was raining, but it was also raining in the garage. And I realized, there's something here that's not like the other. So after a very mild panic attack, I called, of course, my dad, and I was like, Dad, I think that there's a leak. I don't know what to do. It's not coming super strong, but I'm pretty sure that there should not be water dripping from where there is right now. It's not in the corner, like it's just in the middle of the room. I don't know what to do. Turns out one of the stack pipes, which is actually part of the drainage and ventilation system for the sewage of the house, had eroded and rotted and rusted and cracked open with freezing, thawing, freezing, thawing.
Sure.
And it was draining into the basement, into the garage. I was very lucky that it didn't smell like poop, honestly. And I was also very lucky that it didn't kind of seep into the walls of my first floor tenants because that could have been awful. Yeah, so a quick troubleshoot also to a great investor friend was like, okay, here's the name of a plumber, call him out. I did have a home warranty at the time, and I looked over the fine print and, like, great. News to me, plumbing was included, leaked pipes were included. Few days worth of going back and forth with the warranty company, having plumbers come out, paying the fee. They declined the claim.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so they said, this is not our problem. And I'm like, well, now the plumber has opened my wall to diagnose this. So now what? And again, the power of network, the power of connection, was able to get connected with a really great sort of general contractor whose team was able to not only fix the pipe, replace the parts, but then also patch the wall up and amend the area in the garage that was damaged from the leak. They identified like another thing that was not really up to snuff, and they kind of like reinforced a pipe along the way. So all in all, I thought that the world was ending. Mind you, a few weeks before also identified like very bubbly drywall in the bathroom. So this was like, okay, drywall issue. Then, oh my God, now there's a pipe that burst. And I know for a fact that a couple weeks later, yeah, I think that the washer in one of the units just broke. So always in real estate investing, what I've learned is when it rains, it pours. I'm actually going through a similar situation right now. Had a huge mishap happen last night and still working with Airbnb to get it amended. But I just know that it's going to be okay. This is part of the process. And once you get enough reps in of seeing something as a threat and then making your way through it, coming out the other side and realizing, oh, look, like, yeah, I might be short a couple hundred or $1,000, but This is why I don't spend the money that I make on the property. It's just sitting in account. It's waiting. It's waiting. It wants that pipe to burst, you know? It wants the fridge to break because it will be there and we will be all good. And now my reaction level to any sort of minor problem that comes up is like, okay, yeah, this is inconvenient, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story. I really appreciate it. And it just shows, like you said, that it can feel stressful in the moment, but once you have a moment to process it, you can work your way through it and be able to figure it out and rely on your connections that you've made, the networking you've made, and get professional help when you need it.
Yep. Yeah. And I always think, right, like a lot of people's comebacks when you tell them specifically, I'm going to invest in real estate, I'm going to be a property manager, etc., is what are you going to do when the person calls you with a clogged toilet at 3 a.m.? And rather than taking the approach of saying, like, well, I'll call a plumber or this hasn't happened to me yet, the way that I think about it is like, well, do you think that my teacher like sat me down and said, Kayla, what are you going to do the first time a patient disrespects the hell out of you? What are you going to do the first time a patient looks at you and says, I don't agree with your treatment plan? Like, no, I'm not going to prepare for this stuff beforehand. It's all good. You know that it's going to happen and you'll handle it when it does.
Yep, exactly. So it sounds as though you've learned through those experiences, but I'm also curious what else you have learned throughout the real estate investing over the past couple of years.
I would say one thing is that I am personally very risk tolerant, if you can't tell already. I've always been a huge believer in the power of networking and the power of connection, and that has just reinforced tenfold to me. And I also really believe in the power of like community in the thing that you want to do as a social proof. And I think a little bit of healthy social pressure, because when you surround yourself with people who are like doing the big thing that you have some beliefs that you can't do, and then they're doing it and they're like, come on, like hop in our boat, let's go, like what are you waiting for? So I think that's there's a lot of healthy little pressure cooker action, going there, all encompassing. You will fail. Like, it's gonna happen. It's never gonna be perfect. It's never gonna go the way you planned it. And like, that's okay. And we kind of already touched on this, but no matter what you want to do, there's always going to be someone who is telling you their personal beliefs, which are usually pretty negative. And they want to tell you, oh, well, if I had done this 20 years ago, this is what I would have done. Or someone with absolutely zero experience in real estate investing or in medicine telling you, oh, well, maybe you should switch them from a statin to an ARB. It really helped my grandmother. Like, why would I take advice from you? So again, just that kind of staying in your lane and staying true to yourself, making decisions for yourself without the chatter of people who honestly don't know what you're talking about, even though they usually have your best interests in heart.
Yeah, and you touched on how things aren't going to be perfect. And I want to segue that a little bit to many PAs do have the tendency to try to be perfectionists. And that mindset can definitely lead to them getting stuck in analysis paralysis and decision fatigue and feeling as though they can't take any action, whether it's moving their finances, whether it's investing, whether it's getting started with real estate investing. I'm curious how you in particular have combated the tendency to be a perfectionist at times.
Yeah, so I will say I am not perfect. I have my strengths and I have my weaknesses. Just as a huge disclaimer, I know I've done some things really well for me, but I also still struggle every single day with plenty of limiting beliefs and plenty of perfectionist mindset that keeps me from probably achieving my full potential. We're working on it. But just big disclaimer, I am not perfect. I struggle also. For me, a lot of overcoming those challenges, though, is all about skills. I really like things that I can talk myself through or actually physically put myself through to work through a problem rather than just totally focusing on it day in and day out and really like musing my woes day after day, complaining to myself. One thing that has always worked really well for me is worst case scenario, writing out the actual worst case scenario if what you are wanting to do falls flat on its face. So in my example, okay, so I buy this duplex and I can't rent it out as a medium term rental. Okay, I know that I can afford the mortgage payment every month until I figure out another solution. Well, what if I can't afford the mortgage payment? Then I can get a roommate or I can rent it out as a traditional long-term rental. And guess what? Nobody wants to rent your property. It sucks. The pipe burst. All the walls are dark green and there's puke on the floors. Okay, so I can sell the house and I can move in with a friend temporarily until I can find my own place to rent. Well, guess what? I smell and my friend doesn't want to live with me anymore and they're allergic to me and I'm just a really crappy person to be around. So nobody wants to live with me. Okay, so I'll quit my job. I'll move back home and I will move back in with my parents for as long as is tolerable and I'll figure it out. And I think working backwards from the absolute worst case scenario is always not as bad as you think it's going to be. So, like, yeah, okay, I can tolerate that for a couple months. Do I want that to be my forever? No. But do I know that truly, legitimately, if everything fails, I have a safe place to land? It might not be a soft place to land, but it is safe. It's fine. It'll get me by until I can get my shit together again. So, the just worst case scenario has been huge. I also, people have a tendency to spin this the wrong way and use the sunk cost fallacy as a very negative thing that keeps them trapped. But I like to spin it and turn it into a positive. So I like to say, well, I have invested so much of my time, so much of my energy, so much of my willpower, so much of my brain. I've invested so much in this process. Like, am I really willing to give all of that up for fear of trying? Usually it's no. There, of course, are the very surface level, like, do it messy, feel the fear and do it anyway. I love the quote, the only way out is through. There's a really great episode of Hidden Brain with Todd Kashdan about this concept. Highly encourage anyone who wants to think through this, go listen to that episode. Yeah, so the list could definitely go on, but those are just a few of the skills that I try to put in play whenever I know that I need to move, but I can't get myself to do it.
I definitely love all of those strategies. And it's really interesting to hear how you almost let yourself spiral and catastrophize with your thinking and let yourself have those anxious and worried thoughts. And you also talk yourself through them. You reassure yourself through the process. You're reframing those thoughts. So you're not just getting stuck in that spiral and that spin, but you are actually taking action based on those thoughts too, which I absolutely love. So thanks for sharing, Kayla.
Yeah, I think when you have an awareness of what your personal rock bottom really looks like, and you've already lived through that thing, you know that no matter how much you spiral and catastrophize, it's not going to be that bad. Therefore, you can do it. Like,
Yeah,
it's going to be all right.
for sure. And besides investing your money, your paycheck, I'm curious, what other areas do you believe that our listeners, other PAs out there should be investing in throughout their lives?
Yeah, I love this question. So I think all of this kind of clicked for me when I had the realization that being an investor, while that's the first thing you think of is money and finances, being an investor is so much more about investing in yourself as a whole human being. So those moments where you can say, thank you, past Kayla, because you're an investor in your life.
Yep.
The four sort of pillars that I personally have identified that a lot of like successful, highly achieved people will focus on or touch on is mental health, spiritual health, physical health, and financial health. I really don't think you can have one healthily operating without the others being nourished. I think at different points in your life, different categories will take a higher importance and will be nourished in different ways. And maybe even your needs for those like cups being filled in a sense will ebb and flow throughout life. But I really think that having those four pillars in mind, moving through your every single day and really like taking conscious action to invest in each of those areas of your life is so important.
For sure. Yeah, I always like to think of health as being way more than just your physical health and your mental health. Definitely financial health plays a role into those things too. So I encourage everyone to get their finances in order to have financial health too. You mentioned spiritual health. There are also some other people that will add other forms of health like social health and emotional health too, and they can be intertwined with those other types of health. You are definitely correct that all the different types of health, the whole encompassing of health, they definitely interact with each other with those areas. And if one area is not doing well, often another one or two areas aren't doing well too. So it is really important to look at your health as a holistic view versus just an individualistic view, and only focusing on finances and maybe being super frugal, and then your social health is suffering because you're not wanting to spend any money to spend time with your friends or your family or go grab coffee, and instead go ahead and spend a few dollars to go ahead and nourish those social connections too.
Yeah, totally. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Besides financial health, in one of those other areas, what's something that you've been doing to invest in yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Kayla. Recently, my husband and I joined a gym together. So that has been fun to actually go together and work on that. So that has been physical health. And then physical health and mental health, I've been going a little bit down the rabbit hole of nutritional psychiatry. So nutritional mental health a little bit with the nutrients you eat, but then some supplements and things like that too. So that part has been interesting for me as well.
That sounds super interesting.
And then I'm also curious, Kayla, you mentioned that you are one of our WealthRx coaches within the community that we have with Sammy No, who founded the program. Could you share a little bit more about what you have been enjoying most about being a WealthRx coach, and how has that helped with your growth overall?
Yeah, it's been probably almost a year now since I started, coming up on a year, which is really exciting. In my role with WealthRx as one of the wealth coaches, I help my clients to reframe, number one, their beliefs around money, around personal finances, around their debts, but also just around how they operate in the world as a human, how their relationships evolve within themselves and with their partners and with their jobs, and how they see themselves as a PA and then also as a separate, whole, complete human being. And I think something that has been really rewarding for me has really just been taking people who have little to no financial knowledge and, number one, seeing that even if they have really poor financial knowledge, they somehow already made the right decisions. Like, I'm so amazed that so many people have already set themselves up in an advantageous manner. They just don't know what the next steps are.
Sure.
So that's number one. It gives me a little hope, for humanity. But then also talking people through these choices, these blocks, these mindset shifts, and helping them to let go of their perfectionist mindset, to actually feel empowered in their decisions, to look back and see, like, wow, the choices that I made 2, 3, 4 years ago are actually benefiting me from today. And I can continue that momentum and continue that streak, continue to make good choices, and then I'll be able to say thank you past blank in 5 years. So I think in addition to the connection, the social proof that other people care about these things, the community building that we have, helping other people feel empowered in their choices and empowered just in the pure currency of knowledge alone has been really rewarding for me. In addition to just strengthening my own leadership skills, I have spent a lot of time recording in front of a screen over the past year. and you've spent a lot of time watching my videos and giving me feedback. And I think overall I've grown a lot as far as my public speaking goes, as far as my digital presentation goes, and it's been really positive.
Awesome. Yeah, we feel very fortunate to have you and other amazing coaches as part of our community too. And so many of the Wealth RX members have learned so much, but we have also learned a lot from them too in watching them progress and having those changes in their thinking and their mindset changes. It has been really motivating to see.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I'm amazed every single day by the wins that people share in the community and by even just the messages that I exchange back and forth with people privately.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and put a link in the show notes where if any of the listeners are curious to learn a little bit more about Wealth RX, you can go ahead and check it out. And there will be a link to a video to watch in the show notes. And I encourage you to take a look, see if it's something that you're interested in, see if it's something that could help you with learning about finances and building your wealth, but more importantly, having mindset shifts that will ultimately help you become a PA millionaire within 5 to 10 years, which is what our goal is. And Kayla, I really appreciate you taking the time to share so much about your story. And again, you are so incredibly young. So it's been amazing to see how APA so early in her career has made all of these amazing choices that has really set your future, Kayla, up for success. So you can say, thanks, past Kayla.
I love that. If you've learned one thing, if you take away one thing, do things for yourself that make you say, thank you, past Kayla. You are totally allowed to say Kayla when you say it if you want to think of me too. But thank you. Yeah, I clearly am like a little bit of an overachiever, and it's really hard sometimes to actually reflect. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's definitely a gentle reminder for all of you out there. Take the time to reflect on your progress. With the year winding down, now is a perfect time to just think back on the year of 2024. What types of progress have you made? What things have you done that you feel proud of, that have moved the needle? And then think about the past 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and really do take the time to reflect. It can feel so easy to just get caught up in the sense of wanting to go, achieve. Again, going back to a little bit of the perfectionistic tendencies that some of us have, right? But make sure that you're slowing down and reflecting also.
Yeah. If I may, I am an embracer of the darkness as well. And I think that there is huge power in reflecting on mistakes and failures as well, and writing those failures out and then reframing them, or just saying, oh, okay, how can I avoid doing this again? Like, that sucked. I think something that we don't do enough as a society and even as a profession is talk about mistakes that we make, and we're really afraid to let those things come to light. Somehow it's going to destroy everything around us if we acknowledge them. And I just think that that's bull. So
yeah, it's another reminder to be kind to yourself and to have grace with yourself too, because absolutely none of us are perfect by any means, right? We all are work in progress. We all have made mistakes, and often those mistakes, even if they're failures, can be what propels you forward. So I really like that perspective too. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm curious, Kayla, if the listeners would like to reach out to you, connect with you, how could they connect with you, either through social or any other form that you'd like?
Yes. So my kind of primary social is Instagram. You can find me there at the.health.investor, formerly known as the Investor PA, but too many people asked me if I was going to change it to the Investor NJ now that I live in New Jersey. So I realized that there is something wrong with the communication there. So the.health.investor.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kayla. I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kat. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you for tuning in and I hope that you decide to continue to join me along this journey of becoming a PA the FI way. Please take a moment to press the subscribe button on the platform that you are listening to this on, but more importantly, consider sharing with another current or future PA that could benefit from the information that we reviewed in this episode. Take care and have a great rest of your day. Until next time.